newer pieces in the second room. And what I really think about when working is the domestic space. And I always think about, where I exist, right? We're always thinking about our own existence. But I think about how we get through the world and our relationships to objects. And so a lot of these are inspired, starting out with the familiarity of domestic space. We can understand what we grew up with and what we've kind of been given because we're born into like an already existing world. So I just kind of get inspired by that and then think about my materials. And it's really about playing in the studio and kind of working with the different materials and what happens when I don't really try to imply too much meaning and just let the action of, my, I don't know about research, but just letting the material kind of speak back to me. This piece over here, the vinyl piece, was mostly, that stemmed from an idea I wanted to make something that was like an artificial shoulder to lean on, but this piece changed so much drastically through the process, like the material changed, the shape changed, so it kind of moved away from being obvious, having an obvious meaning, and so I think that helped with the other pieces, realizing that I don't have to spell out anything and just play with the materials. So that's kind of where I come from in making work. And I think through making materials, I often, like with the other pieces, they become more formal. And I really think about how I can create a sense of a storyline within the gallery space. So the hope is that you can walk through and kind of make up your own sense of reality or something with the pieces. So. And then the other work is definitely newer work, and I think it's a little, again, I'd be happy with questions about that work. It's again newer to me as well.
I have a question. Are you taking questions?
Sure.
So how long do you spend with the material typically while it's processing? Can it be like a really long time, or is it usually like happens kind of quickly? Or is it more like a material that you've used over and over again and that you've built up a relationship with? Like how do you address, I think, maybe approach the materials, and how does that play out, like, in terms of?
It varies a lot. Like these pieces of wood, I found those pieces of wood, and for some reason I needed them, and so they were probably with me for about a year and a half. I'm like, oh good, I have these pieces of wood I have to do something with. And then it just became more about what can I do, and then it was this balance and piecing something together, and so it became this precarious sort of structure. And I felt like having that material in my life helped me when I needed to come up with, just playing in the studio. Like, okay, today I'm going to pick up those sticks and just play with them. And so when that kind of gave me that sense of that precariousness, right? Because they aren't really solid. And so kind of, again, like it came out, it was like, and it sounds dumb to say it was talking back to me, but I really just played with that. It wasn't like I worked with wood a lot, but a lot of it's found, in a sense. Like that piece in the back, the tall piece, those were just, little railings from something, Same with like this piece here, and it was more like I'm looking at these and like how can I play with it? And again, I really like to make things that are about the body and space, and again how you can have I don't know if it's a relationship, but it's more of just a spatial conversation with something. And so that was nice because all I had to do was change the context, and then it became something for me. Just that your body is now reacting to those totally different. And so then you have to come up with, I think it's really for the viewer. Like I really want to leave it open-ended. And then the viewer can just enjoy it, but then also think, okay, there's something dysfunctional. And a lot of it is that sense of something we know and then making it dysfunctional in a way. I don't know if that answered your question at all.
And what about that? How do you work between this kind of material response and then to do the painting, which is sort of material also, but like where does that fit in your practice?
Yeah, the paintings actually came about because I didn't have a lot of studio space and I wasn't using a lot of color. And so I was more like, okay, let's challenge myself and start putting color next to each other. And then I really started enjoying it. It also became play because it's layered through masking. And it also, I think I learned a lot of, just for myself, taking little risks and assuming like, I'm gonna say that this is a move that I'm gonna start with. You know, so those are really freeing for me. And I didn't think I would show those. I thought they were just like, for me to get over certain like inhibitions, like, oh, I'm a painter, you know, and then I think I just am really happy with them now. So I want to show them to give myself a little bit of like, okay, it's still part of the practice. You know, I think it's a reaction to thinking about space, where I was just playing with color combination and how to bring and push and pull space with color. It's funny because the palette kind of fits. Like I feel like, again, the work ends up being really formal together. And it's fun to work when you have a show because then you can't just play with like, okay, that thing's going to be painted blue, you know, instead of like that urn or whatever in there being another color. It just needed to be blue for some reason and I didn't question it. Okay. You know. And then I found that, you know, a lot of it is inspired by found objects. Like I found that wallpaper for the inside of that crate. And I was just like, I have to use this somehow. And it really was interesting because I got into the pressure and the pushing and pulling of the upholstery. And so that was this given sense. And I had to create from another piece. I was like, oh, this is kind of, I don't know. I think it's just about playing with our reality as well, with those familiar things. Because I think you want to kind of get into that crate, but you can't. You know, and it's like it's soft, but it's not soft. It's just wallpaper, so that's fun for me, and I'm trying to have some fun instead of getting so serious.
Do you find yourself doing a lot of materials, collecting them, and knowing you want to use them at some point, just waiting, letting them kind of speak to you and get your feeling or sense of what you know about them?
Yeah.
Before you
Yeah, I used to try to deny that and just think, oh, I'm being nostalgic, and oh, this is just something because I like it, and then I realized that that's all okay, right? Like you find these objects because there's so much in the world, and so, there's a big light in my face. But there's just so much in the world that I've learned that when I do find those objects, and they do actually feel special, I try to, you know, get them in my possession, and then I hope that it will eventually come out, right? So like these things being around for a while, what am I going to do with these? Why am I moving sticks, you know, like in a box, you know? And this is the newest piece, so it feels interesting. And I call it walking into walls because I think, you know, I think all this stuff reflects, like any artist reflects your life going on right now. So it's like, oh, that's kind of how I feel. A little bit like together, yet hollowly. So, and that's, I think, is the most pared down that I'm curious about. People react to that. It's kind of, we'll see what
So how do you feel about like the temporality of the work? Like are you rejecting like the permanence of fine artwork by doing this, like on purpose, or is it kind of like if it's reflecting your life, it's like because you know you come into a lot of objects every day, is it kind of easy come, easy go, like let's work with it and let it go type of thinking?
I don't know. I actually really like the idea of permanence. This is it's a good question because I think a lot of art today is not permanent and it's just this reactionary thing. And like I think this piece, it's interesting to make something that's like well crafted. It's supposed to last a long time. You know, because everything is quick. And I don't know. I kind of want things to last. But I guess I'm challenging myself, so I'm still maybe in question of that.
Yeah.
Because even that piece on the wall, there's that plaster in the shelf, like that was such a, again, I guess I'm trying to get in touch with what I want with actionary work. Like this feels like maybe there's a little bit of the building essence is in there versus just the finished product where you don't necessarily think about the process in that. Where this you're like, it kind of makes you think about process. So I'm
There's a
kind
lot
of,
of tension from me here. It's like it's just kind of held together.
yeah,
And it can just kind of just, like, I'm looking at these parts right here and they
Yeah.
look like they can just snap at any moment.
yeah.
But
It
that
felt
looks
so
like
many
very
times.
purposeful.
Yeah, and I think that that's, I guess what I'm coming into is how to let that be real. A real part of the work is that action and the precariousness. But then I do also appreciate something that's going to stick around and not just be, recycled in the end in a way. But again, that's a question that I'm, I think, dealing with all the time when I'm working with objects.
Can we talk about the spilled plaster piece and what that means to you? Yeah.
So what it means, right? It means I think it was another sense of the action where that wood was being, that tension there, like it's that action, but it's, I think because it's plaster, that it's also, I don't know if it's a fake action, but it's been frozen, so then it's like an aftermath. And I think I like to play with that, I guess like tension of it being, not that it's not real, but it's not sort of real spill because it's now solid. So I can just pick it up and move it in a way. And again, it was fun because it just came into me, as those ideas do, and then I was like, oh, I'll just, spill something. And then I realized, right, like the concept of, oh, this is kind of how I'm feeling in my life. Like, there's this containment, and then it just gets spilled over, and, so I just thought it was kind of a fun thing that I wanted to try. But it did, I do believe in all that, but you get these ideas and you don't really know why, but it is coming, it's psychological. And then it just seemed like it just worked for me. I think also because this floor is black and then the blue is there, so it's nice to get those ideas and then realize you have those pieces in your studio, so you're like, oh, that's what that can do. So it's kind of like those things that I have hanging out tend to pop in when I have ideas. So my studio is usually full of a bunch of crap that I have to, eventually they're like, oh yeah, that's working, and oh yeah, this one's working now. So yeah, that's how these things come about. But they do sit around and wait with me for it to happen. So
is this sort of a process of reacting to where these pieces will go?
a little bit.
Predicting how something will react to like the blackboard or
Yeah, well this,
architectures.
a little bit, yeah, because I think I was, it was already, existing as an idea, and I had spray painted that piece of blue, and I think blue was weird, but I like it for some reason. And then it was fortunate, because I didn't make it until just like the end, but it was like, this is what you have to do with this. And so, and then I was like, oh, the floor is black, this is the space to do this in. So it pushed me to do that instead of shy away from making moves. But I think we can do that. So, and I think shows are always fun too. You do have to like, okay, here's your headline, make some moves instead of just thinking about it. So I feel like this is fresh stuff because it was like, I got busy and had responsibilities in my life this year more than ever. So it was interesting to make work and have it still be of that essence of like the domestic familiarity and then becoming more about a quicker like fakeness, and then again finding the objects that I think speak together in the space.
So how did you navigate that with Jeremy's work then? as far as like integrating work together instead of doing one.
I think, I mean, we both talked about the use of space. And, you know, I guess I have some stuff for the wall, but it just seemed to work out. I think that how he was perceiving the space through that, and then these needed space around them. So it just would have felt weird to have them all crammed into one space, right? Because I mean, there's not a lot in this room, but I don't think you could put anything else in this room, in a way, compared to what's in that room. And I also think that they paired us well in this venue. And I think from the beginning, we've been like, oh, cool, we can mix up the space. So I think I was just fortunate to work with Jeremy. And that our work is somewhat similar in that it is talking about space. And that we like to not be too cluttered. Any other questions?